The name of our MC is Li Yi, an experienced interdimensional operative. Every day, he put on a protective suit and risked his life by entering another dimension to mine energy stones. Right before entering the portal, one of his superiors praised him with a proud smile. He acknowledged his good performance during the month, commenting that if he kept up this pace, he could pay off his parents' debt in approximately a year. Placing his hand on his shoulder, he mentioned that if Li Yi maintained this pace for another 3 to 5 years, he could even buy a small apartment. Li Yi began to show a forced smile, promising to work hard, although deep down he cursed this heartless capitalist. His real plan was to pay off the debt and leave. He had no intention of working another 5 years in this shitty job. You see, the radiation in other dimensions offered a 1 in 1,000 chance for an ordinary person to awaken as an advanced one, but it was also deadly. No one would choose to put on a suit and work in another dimension unless forced by life's own circumstances. The trucks began moving toward the portals. One of the men asked his friend if Li Yi was the guy he had talked about, the one whose parents had died in an accident 3 years ago, who not only received no compensation but also ended up with their debt. His friend nodded, explaining that NG Group had insisted that his parents caused a loss of $1 million. Li Yi was a truly unfortunate boy. The chubby one did not agree. He stated that there was nothing regrettable about this. Li Yi was simply weak. If it were him, he would risk everything to make the company pay. The friend was somewhat confused, since he thought he was going to make them pay with their lives. The chubby one crossed his arms and asked his friend if he was stupid. He explained that taking a life would solve nothing. Getting some money was much more practical. Li Yi's eyes began to shine with rage. Sometimes, a person became weak not because of themselves, but because society, because the world, had gone mad. Several hours later, they got off the trucks, put on the equipment, and decided to get to work. Just then, the ground began to shake, and one of the men thought there was a collapse. The supervisor explained that this was just a small earthquake. The chubby one's eyes widened in confusion, since he had never heard of earthquakes in another dimension. Despite having worked in many dimensional zones, they had never heard of an earthquake. This led them to wonder if monsters were about to appear. They began talking among themselves. One warned that they should not continue working, mentioning that he had heard this place used to have aliens, which were even harder to face than insectoids and beasts. They came to the conclusion that it was better to stop. This was too dangerous. The supervisor gave the order to everyone to be quiet, making it clear that the advanced ones had cleared this area of aliens 3 years ago, so it was impossible for them to appear. Just before he could finish speaking, a claw pierced through his chest. Upon seeing this, the other's eyes widened in fear. Li Yi was paralyzed with fear, not knowing what to do. Just before dying, the supervisor revealed that it was an alien. At that moment, several powerful beasts known as aliens began descending from the sky, creating chaos. The aliens began to massacre the workers, causing the others to start fleeing for their lives. Li Yi began to run with all his strength, remembering that he was more than 10 kilometers away from the dimensional rift exit. His eyes widened in terror. He wondered if running would really help at all. He was aware that this was completely beyond what human strength could handle. One of the aliens threw the body of one of the workers toward Li Yi, making it crash against his back and smash into the wall. Li Yi began to pant heavily and saw the workers get on the truck. When they started the truck, our boy asked them to wait for him. But just then, one of the aliens landed on top of the truck, used its sharp claw to make a hole in the roof. Seeing this, the workers panicked, knowing that this was not good. The alien grabbed the 2 workers, and with a jump, overturned the truck. The other aliens began to advance toward the vehicle, and our boy soon realized that their target was the people inside. But not long after, the truck exploded, causing the bodies of the aliens to be thrown. Li Yi put his hand over his face and couldn't help but panic. The fire began to burn the aliens, making them writhe in pain. The aliens collapsed. Li Yi, injured, stood up and couldn't help but wonder if fire was their weakness. His attention was fixed on one of the torches that was lying on the ground. He decided to test his theory. One of the aliens lunged at him. Our boy jumped and started running toward the torch, taking advantage of the momentum. Luckily, he managed to reach the torch and grabbed it. Li Yi started to swing the torch from side to side. The alien immediately stopped advancing toward him. When Li Yi pointed the torch at them, the monsters froze in fear. His eyes began to shine with confidence, and he revealed to everyone that these creatures were afraid of fire. 10 years ago, some gates suddenly appeared all over the world. Through them, insectoids, beasts, and aliens from dimensional realms emerged in swarms and invaded Earth. Only the advanced ones, awakened by the radiation, possessed the power to resist these monsters. Their appearance not only allowed humans to close the gates, but also opened a new era of exploration and development of dimensional energy for humanity. Unfortunately, they were not advanced ones. Lee ordered everyone to quickly gather as many flammable materials as possible. Some workers grabbed torches to repel the aliens, while the others ran toward the burning truck. They were just ordinary people, and simple survival in this world cost them everything they had. In front of the monsters from the gate, they didn't even have the strength to flee. One of the men grabbed a torch, and his body began to tremble, causing his eyes to fill with fear. He knew that the torch wasn't going to last much longer. Lee began to sweat and revealed that there was gasoline in the storage room. His plan was to block the entrance with fire in order to hold out until rescue arrived. Lee ordered them to stand back to back, form a circle, and retreat slowly. Li's plan began to work as little by little they started advancing toward the storage room. Once close, Li asked them to pour the gasoline at the entrance. One of them nodded. They kicked the barrels, causing the gasoline to fall at the entrance. Once one of the aliens stepped on the gasoline, Li and the others threw their torches. The torch made contact with the gasoline, creating a powerful flame which spread throughout the entrance, burning the alien. With a grateful smile, the old man placed his hand on Li's shoulder. As they caught their breath, they admitted that if it hadn't been for him, they would all be dead. They assured him that if anything happened, he only had to ask, and they would definitely help him. Li's attention was fixed on something, making him curious. In this room, there was a statue. Seeing Li's expression, the old man explained that it was discovered a long time ago in the mine shaft. He believed that Supervisor Wong planned to smuggle it out to sell it on the black market, and because of this, he had kept it here. Li began to observe carefully, realizing that the statue was very ancient. They belonged to Sector 7, and using the walkie-talkie, they asked when someone would come rescue them, revealing that they were under attack by aliens and urgently needed reinforcements. The rescue team reported that they had received their message. They were told that, for the moment, they should ensure their own safety, as the rescue would arrive in approximately 2 hours. Upon hearing this, their eyes widened with fear, and when they asked if they could come earlier, the walkie-talkie signal was lost. They panicked, not knowing what to do. The situation was even more desperate since the power sources of their protective suits only had an hour and a half left. The fear of dying was palpable. Some thought about the wives and children waiting for them at home. Cursing, one of them proposed breaking through with a vehicle, arguing that it was better for at least one to escape than for all to sit waiting for death. With a calm look, Li looked at his wrist, realizing that his suit had little energy left. He could only hope that the rescue would arrive soon. One of the workers caught everyone's attention. It was the chubby one, who was holding a wooden stick. His eyes began to shine with malice, revealing that the energy in their suits would not last until the rescue arrived, and in this situation, someone would have to make a sacrifice. His attention focused on Li and the old man. Our boy remained calm. The chubby one began pointing at Li with the wooden stick and made it clear that Li had no ties and was drowning in debt, so his life was only suffering. Because of this, he demanded that he hand over the battery from his suit. Li's eyes widened with rage, causing him to clench his teeth tightly. Seeing that Li was trying to resist without having the strength, the chubby one hit him with the stick. Li blocked the attack, causing the wooden stick to break in half. Our boy began to writhe in pain, and the chubby one mocked him, challenging him to resist. With a furious gaze, they grabbed Li by the neck and took off his mask, saying that maybe exposing him to radiation would trigger his awakening. They added that if he awakened his powers, he could become the hero who would save them. Crawling toward his mask, Li swore to those bastards that if he awakened, the first thing he would do is kill them. Their eyes began to shine with malice, and a confident smile spread across their faces. The probability of awakening was 1 in 1,000, and they didn't believe he was so lucky, believing they had secured another battery. They turned around to the others and asked who would be next to try to awaken. One of the men panicked, pushed his companions, and started running toward the truck, causing the chubby one and the others to start chasing him. His eyes were shining with determination. He said that if they were going to die, then they would all die together. He started up the truck, and without hesitating for a second, decided to flee from this place. In the process, he made the statue fall to the ground in front of Li. The others panicked. They knew they had to stop him immediately, because if he broke through the fire barricade at the entrance, everyone would be lost. They couldn't do anything since he knocked down the outside fire barrier, allowing aliens to enter. Li's attention was fixed on the statue, and his eyes widened in confusion. He didn't know if it was smiling. The statue's eyes began glowing with evil, and a smile spread across its face. Upon seeing this, our boy thought that even the statue was mocking him. One of the aliens entered the room and crushed the head of the statue. Our boy put his hands on top of his head to avoid being hit by the pieces. With glowing eyes, the alien began to extend its claw toward Li Yi, ready to end his life. Our boy raised his head and couldn't help but wonder why. The alien grabbed him by the head and prepared its sharp claw. Li Yi panicked, not knowing why he had to endure all this. The alien pierced Li Yi's chest, and our boy realized that all this was happening only because he was weak. Li Yi began to remember his past, his poor relatives telling him to leave, refusing to raise him after his parents' death, the landlord throwing him out for not having rent money, and the relentless demand that he pay off his debt, no matter that his parents were gone. Our boy was lying on the ground in front of the owner of the group, who questioned his intention to investigate the death of his parents and to sue the group. He threw the letters in Li Yi's face, revealing that all the complaints he had sent everywhere had ended up in his hands. He mocked him for not wanting compensation, but rather the truth, and assured him that he would give him this truth. He revealed that the truth was that his parents had violated procedures and caused the accident. Not only would they not compensate him, but they would also make him pay for the millions in losses that his parents had caused to the group. Li Yi could only clench his fist tightly. One of the men from the group kicked him in the face, making it clear to him that he had been warned. It would have been better if he had signed the compensation agreement and taken those tens of thousands instead of insisting on knowing the truth. Li Yi fell to the ground. Now, his debt was under the man's management. 30,000 in monthly interest, and the principal to be paid in 3 years. He warned him that on the 15th of each month he would send someone to collect, and if he didn't have the money, he shouldn't blame them for being rough. Seeing how pitiful Li Yi looked, he decided to show him a path, become a dimensional miner, since this was the only job with which he could manage to pay off his debt. Back in the present, the alien pierced Li Yi's chest, making him spit blood from his mouth. He was going to die anyway, but decided not to make it easy for the beast. Li Yi didn't care about being weak and was not willing to accept death, so with eyes shining with determination, he bit the alien on the arm. It pulled its claw out of Li Yi's chest, causing his body to crash hard against the ground. Li Yi's face was covered in blood. The smell of this beast was truly disgusting. At that moment, the statue activated and a demon made of shadow appeared. With a smile, he mentioned that it had thought he might burst forth with some hidden potential, but this turned out to be just a useless struggle before death. With a hole in his chest and writhing in pain, Li Yi mocked the demon. He had at least bitten the alien once, but what about him? He was nothing more than a broken statue, shattered by this beast as if it were nothing. The demon made it clear that he was the only one who could save him now. He just had to obediently hand over his body. With a gaze full of rage, Li Yi refused. He wasn't interested. He preferred to die rather than be controlled, much less by a spawn like him. Seeing that Li Yi wanted to die with pride, a smile spread across the demon's face. The alien prepared to finish off Li Yi, and the demon made it clear that Li Yi had no right to refuse. At that moment, a strange energy began to emerge from his body, and the shadow system activated. Seeing this, the alien's eyes widened in confusion. It didn't know what was happening. Without hesitating for even a second, it knelt before Li Yi. Li Yi's body changed and was now surrounded by shadow, and being controlled by the demon's eyes began to shine with rage, realizing that this alien had been the one who had crushed his statue. Without hesitating for a second, the demon used his powers, causing a giant foot to crush the alien's body. The demon began to observe the alien in silence. Just then, another monster appeared and began charging toward him. The demon turned around, and not long after, a small demon made of shadow appeared under its feet. It opened its mouth and swallowed the alien. When another alien tried to attack, the demon cut off its head. According to him, this smell was really disgusting. The demon began to walk toward the workers and decided it was time to take care of the rest of this trash. Shadow emerged from the ground, wrapping around the bodies of the workers. They panicked, demanding to know what Li Yi was doing, and made it clear that if he dared lay a finger on them, they would report him. While a powerful energy was emerging from the demon's body, his eyes began to glow, and a curious smile spread across his face. He wanted to know exactly what Li Yi would do if he gave him back his body. The workers began to beg Li Yi not to hurt them, explaining that they were only trying to survive. With fear on their faces, they mentioned that if it weren't for them, Li Yi wouldn't have even known he could become an advanced one. They admitted to having been a bit harsh with him, but thanks to this, he had also awakened. With a piercing gaze, Li Yi asked sarcastically if he should thank them now. With a smile, one of them mentioned there was no need to thank them. He simply had to pretend nothing had happened and let them go. Our boy's eyes began to shine with malice. He snapped his fingers and with a smile not only decided to let them go, but even decided to lend them a hand. Shadow emerged from our boy's body and tore off the workers' masks. They began to cough and bleed, and not long after, they lost their lives. Li Yi turned around, and the other workers panicked, begging him not to kill them since they hadn't done anything. Li Yi dropped their batteries and revealed that now they were theirs, leaving them somewhat confused. The demon manifested again and asked our boy to spare his useless pity, since it would only drag him into trouble. Our boy began to walk away and told the demon to shut up, as he didn't need it giving him orders. The demon wanted to see if he would keep acting tough when he was at death's door. When Li Yi came out of the cave, he saw a horde of powerful aliens approaching. He was somewhat confused, as he didn't expect there to be so many outside the cave. With a smile, the demon decided to give Li Yi two options: hand over control of his body, or take care of the trash himself. The aliens lunged at Li Yi. Our boy's legs began to tremble with fear, and noticing this, the demon made it clear that without his power, he was nothing. Our boy filled himself with enthusiasm and jumped, dodging the alien's attack. He once again made it clear that he didn't need to be given orders. The alien attacked again, but Li Yi dodged the attack again. While our boy was in the air, the alien took advantage and launched a powerful punch, but luckily, Li Yi reacted in time and blocked the attack at the last second. While he was distracted, another alien appeared behind him, ready to attack. Our boy's eyes filled with fear. He reacted in time and dodged the attack, saving himself by a hair. He was somewhat surprised, since even his reaction and speed had improved a lot. The beast lunged at Li Yi. Our boy focused and decided to use the power of the shadow system. The demon mocked him, asking if this was all the power he had even after having linked with the shadow system. Li Yi clenched his fist tightly and gave a powerful punch to the alien, making its body shoot out. His eyes widened in surprise. He didn't know why his power had increased so much. Despite having received the attack, the alien was still alive. Our boy realized that attacking only with his body was not going to do enough damage to them. He wished to have a weapon in his hands. Shadow manifested in his hand, and a dagger made of shadow appeared, leaving him in shock. The alien stood up and began to charge at him. Our boy decided to check if the dagger fit his hand. Li Yi moved quickly, cutting the alien in half. Li Yi's eyes filled with joy. Now he could kill aliens too. Two aliens lunged at him. Li Yi still couldn't believe that he had become an advanced one. One of the aliens attacked Li Yi from behind. He turned around and cut off its head. Then he began to charge towards the other aliens. He finally had the power to counterattack. Li Yi continued fighting against the aliens. He was exhausted and with his face full of blood. His effort had paid off since he had killed all the aliens. A notification appeared, announcing that his advancement had been successful. He was an advanced one of rank E. A few hours later, Li Yi was in the hospital. The nurse was confused, as she noticed that he had no injuries or illness. Everything in his body was normal, which made it inexplicable that he still hadn't woken up. The doctor who was examining our boy explained that the advanced ones were like that. They became severely exhausted because their bodies needed to adapt to the new level. The nurse's eyes began to shine with love and surprise. She wanted to know what level our boy was. Noticing her excitement, the doctor suggested they wait for him to wake up before talking about his level. He decided to go to the next room. The nurse didn't want to leave. She wanted to stay and observe him a little longer, as she found him very handsome. Shadow began to emerge from Li Yi's body, and then the demon appeared. He felt frustrated for having to inhabit a human, a race he considered low level, and that, on top of that, was E-class. With his status and strength, his host should have been at least S-class or A-class, or in the worst case, B-class. But instead, he was trapped in this shell. Even so, it seemed interesting that a simple E-class could activate the power of the shadow system and change form on the first try. It was a shame because a body like this couldn't handle even 1/10,000th of his authority. Seeing that the demon had reappeared, Li Yi felt somewhat confused. He wanted to know what exactly it was and why it clung to him. The demon's eyes began to glow as he revealed that he was the ancient supreme entropic one of the entropic clan, the sovereign of all dimensions and prisons from other worlds. He ordered Li Yi to offer him his body, assuring him that he would be well rewarded once he reclaimed his throne from those who had betrayed him. Li Yi began to observe the demon closely. He did not believe a single word of it. To him, the titles Ancient Supreme and Entropic Clan were complete nonsense that he had never heard of. He compared the creature to a cockroach and decided not to give up his body to something so dark and ugly. The sovereign felt furious upon seeing that a human was mocking him and explained that there was no need for more words. The only value in Li Yi's existence was simply offering his body. Our boy began to ponder. He wondered if the sovereign was obsessed with him because of his physical attractiveness, and if this was a possession by some evil spirit. The creature seemed to have serious problems, so he decided it was better not to provoke him for the moment. The idea that the sovereign might try to force him repulsed him. His face was unbearable, and the fact that his gender was uncertain made things worse. He debated between dying to prove his will and make him give up, or trying to reason with him so he would understand that this would never happen. However, he feared that enraging him would lead them both past a point of no return, dragging them into ruin and perishing together. Trapped between these terrible possibilities, he didn't know what he should do. Li Yi's thoughts made the sovereign start losing patience. He became furious and grabbed our boy by the collar. He was angry since he had destroyed his own eyes just to end up with this E-class human trash. If the situation hadn't been so desperate back then, he would have chosen an old dog over an E-class garbage. A gate appeared, and the sovereign threw Li Yi inside it, making it clear that if he didn't reach D-class in 3 days, he would erase him completely. Li Yi fell to the ground and his eyes widened in confusion. He remembered being in the hospital and didn't know what this place was. The sovereign crossed his arms and revealed that they were inside the gate of otherworldly prison, the E-class trial of his clan, the insect nest. He clarified that each member of the Qingtian race could only participate once after reaching adulthood. In front of our boy was a fierce beast with glowing eyes. Li Yi stood up and assumed that, by having possessed him, the sovereign had refreshed the trial attempt. The creature began to stare at Li Yi. It was a shield carapace beetle. Li Yi was confused, as he didn't understand why he recognized this species. The sovereign made it clear that the shadow system he had given him would read directly from his knowledge bank, and Li Yi had to get used to it. Li Yi clenched his fist tightly and made his shadow dagger appear. The shield carapace beetle attacked, but using the dagger, Li Yi began to block the attacks, realizing that it was very fast. With a furious gaze, it began to roar. The beetle attacked again. Li Yi jumped and dodged the attack and noticed that the beast's blind spot was right behind. Jumping, Li Yi attacked the beetle's shell. His attacks didn't have much effect, and when he landed on the ground, the beast attacked fiercely. Luckily, Li Yi reacted in time and blocked the attack. Stabbing the dagger into the ground, Li Yi stopped his moving body. Li Yi noticed that the beast's shell was very hard. The sovereign mocked him, asking if brute force was his only tactic. Our boy lunged at the beast, making it clear that his way of fighting was none of his business. Li Yi began to attack the beetle, but it blocked all his attacks, making Li Yi wonder if this beast even had a weak point. The eyes of the beast began to shine with rage. It swung its sharp legs, causing Li Yi to be thrown. Our boy crashed against the wall, causing him terrible pain. The sovereign demanded that he get up, calling him a weakling E-class. Li Yi's attention was fixed on his shoulder, and his eyes widened in confusion upon seeing a green liquid. The beetle had an injury on its leg. It prepared to finish off Li Yi, and our boy realized that this green liquid was its blood. His eyes began to shine with joy since he had found its weakness. With eyes shining with rage, the beast prepared to attack. A strange energy began to emerge from Li Yi's eye. He filled himself with determination and decided to see who the real weakling was. The sovereign was somewhat confused since he didn't know if Li Yi was using Eye of Shadow. Our boy moved like a thunder and in the blink of an eye, cut off one of the beetle's legs. The sovereign mocked Li Yi as he considered that all that effort to break a single leg was useless. Li Yi began to stare at the beast, making it clear that now it had one less leg to defend itself. He stomped on the ground forcefully, knowing that now hitting its weak point was going to be much easier. Now that the beetle was injured, it started to retreat. Li Yi knew he needed a more effective weapon, since the dagger was not going to be very useful now. He concentrated and began to manipulate the shadow, transforming it into a powerful spear. Li Yi struck the beetle under the abdomen, causing its body to be launched into the air. Li Yi began to observe carefully, realizing that the reason why the bug remained still was because its weak point was in the abdomen. Now that the beetle was defenseless, Li Yi drove the spear into its abdomen, making its body explode into pieces. A blue energy stone fell to the ground. Li Yi was panting heavily and couldn't believe he had won. The sovereign mocked him for panting so hard after killing a simple E-rank bug. Li Yi grabbed the stone and his mind was filled with confusion. He didn't know what it was, but he felt a surge of power enter his body. His progress for the D-rank breakthrough increased by 0.2%. The sovereign revealed that it was an energy stone, an object that had the possibility of increasing his ability level. At that moment, Li Yi became alert, but when he turned around, he saw nothing. He was confused, as he knew something was approaching, although he was unable to see it. With a smile, the sovereign suggested he use Eye of Shadow to take a look. Li Yi turned around and with a confused gaze asked what kind of skill this was. The sovereign explained that he only needed to concentrate the shadow energy in his eyes to activate the Eye of Shadow ability. Li Yi decided to comply and began concentrating his shadow energy in his eyes. One of Li Yi's eyes began to glow, successfully activating Level 1 Eye of Shadow. Another beast appeared and launched several spikes toward Li Yi. Thanks to Eye of Shadow, Li Yi was able to foresee the attack, and by jumping, dodged it, but in the process, it tore part of his clothes. The spike hit the wall, and poison began emerging from the impact area. The beast continued launching spikes. Li Yi was somewhat confused, as he did not understand what these things moving so fast were. The spikes began to approach Li Yi from behind at great speed. Luckily, Li Yi was flexible and was able to avoid being hit. He was somewhat confused, as he did not know if the Eye of Shadow skill of the Sovereign was useless, and asked why he could not see clearly. The Sovereign made it clear that the skill was not useless, but rather that Li Yi's strength was too weak. Upon hearing this, Li Yi felt furious and decided to gather more energy in his eye. The Sovereign was somewhat surprised, as it seemed increasingly interesting that a simple E rank could control the shadow energy with such skill. Li Yi was able to see the beast that was attacking him, a Warp Reaper bug, known as the Head Reaper. The information described it as a stinger shooter, an expert in launching poisonous spines from afar. Little by little, he was adapting to the knowledge bank. Li Yi clenched his teeth tightly and his eyes filled with fear. In the blink of an eye, dozens of beasts appeared. Our boy panicked, realizing there were too many. The beasts began to roar and not long after started charging toward Li Yi. Our boy adopted a defensive stance, and the Sovereign praised him for knowing how to find a position to avoid being attacked from all sides. He concentrated and summoned 2 shadow daggers, then made a wave of energy repel the beasts that were nearby. A powerful energy began to emerge from Li Yi's body. The Sovereign was somewhat surprised, as Li Yi had already awakened the second stage of Eye of Shadow with great speed. That a mere E-class achieved this was a pleasant surprise. While Li Yi's eyes were shining with rage, he began to stare silently at the other beasts. Our boy began to dodge the ferocious attacks of the beast without much difficulty, noticing that the movements of the insectoids had slowed down by at least half. The system began to highlight several spots on the beast. This purple color was the weakness of the insectoids. The system had recorded the weak point of this spiked projector. The Sovereign mentioned that this was the benefit brought by the Eye of Shadow upon reaching Stage 2. Once the weak point was identified, attacks could break defenses. Li Yi's eye began to shine with determination upon discovering that all of them had their weak points underneath. Our boy used the skill Shadow Thorn, Grand Burial. This technique allowed him to impale the shadow into the ground and project it upwards, causing area damage. Several spikes made of shadow emerged from the ground, piercing through the insectoids. The monsters dropped energy stones, and the progress bar for the D-rank breakthrough increased from 1.3% to 2.7%. Li Yi did not lower his guard, and it didn't take long for him to realize that each energy stone only provided a 0.7% progress for the breakthrough. Several more spiked projectors appeared and began staring at Li Yi. Now that he had discovered their weak points, he decided to eliminate them all at once. Li Yi moved like thunder, attacking the beast's weak points. His progress bar for the D-rank breakthrough increased from 3.1% to 5.3%. He was somewhat surprised, as he did not expect that just level 2 Eye of Shadow could increase his attack accuracy so much. While he was distracted, an insectoid tried to launch a surprise attack at great speed. Luckily, Li Yi ducked and dodged the attack by a hair. The Sovereign couldn't help but praise his quick reaction, although regretted that his brain had not been up to par. Li Yi began to observe carefully and clearly saw that it was a warp saber worm. Our boy transformed his shadow dagger into a whip. Just before it could escape by jumping away, Li Yi used the whip and caught the warp saber worm. Now that it could not escape, without losing a second, Li Yi killed the beast using the other shadow dagger, and the system recorded the weak point of the warp saber worm. The Warp Reaper bugs launched their sharp stingers toward Li Yi. Our boy focused and using his power, transformed his shadow daggers into chain daggers, dodged the stingers, and cut the backsides of the beasts. His D-rank breakthrough progress had already reached 12.1%. Li Yi transformed his chain daggers into whips, which wrapped around the nearby beasts and made their bodies crash forcefully against the ground. The Sovereign was pleased to notice that Li Yi was finally beginning to be worthy of him, even though his stance was a bit ugly. His D-rank breakthrough progress reached 34.2%. Li Yi obtained the gift of the Eye of Shadow, a gift that greatly enhanced his senses, reactions, strength, and control over shadow. At that moment, something strange happened, and Li Yi's eyes widened in fear. The Sovereign revealed that, at the same time, The gift of the Eye of Shadow consumed immense mental power. This was the price it demanded in return. An E rank remained an E rank, and he had already reached his limit. Our boy's vision began to blur, just now that he had finally obtained this power. One of the beasts attacked Li Yi from behind, causing a deep cut. Li Yi's eyes began to shine with determination. He was not willing to fall here. He had 15 hours and 28 minutes left to complete this trial. Li Yi began to imagine the bastards from NG Group. He couldn't believe they had dared to hide the truth about his parents' death and shamelessly forced him to work in the mines to pay off a debt. Consumed by hatred, Li Yi began to massacre the beasts that stood in his way. All of this had happened to him just for being an ordinary person, but now that he had the power to change everything, he would not give up. He would get his revenge. His breakthrough progress bar went from 58.7% to 94.8%. Now he had 1 hour and 27 minutes remaining. Li Yi had massacred hundreds of beasts and was sitting on a mountain of corpses. He was willing to drag each one of those arrogant bastards to hell and force them to kneel before the graves of his parents to repent. His breakthrough progress bar had reached 95.4%, and now he had 2 minutes and 15 seconds remaining. The Sovereign was somewhat surprised to realize that human hatred was surprisingly compatible with the shadow system, and it even nourished the shadow energy. He mentioned that the promised time was approaching and asked him to hurry. His breakthrough progress bar had reached 97.8%, and now he had 7 seconds remaining. Li Yi grabbed his daggers, and the Sovereign noticed that he really planned to unleash all his shadow energy at once, asking if he wasn't afraid of exploding. Li Yi filled himself with determination. He knew he only needed a little more to reach the breakthrough, and if he could become stronger, he was willing to risk everything. With 1 second remaining, Li Yi lunged at the horde of beasts. Li Yi began to descend upon the horde of beasts and unleashed all his power, creating a powerful explosion, which massacred all the beasts. His breakthrough progress bar finally reached 100%, and he was promoted to level D. While the energy stones were floating around Li Yi, he wiped the sweat from his face. The Sovereign, noticing that he had barely made it, considered that now he could call him Little D. Li Yi's attention was fixed on a sword that was lying on the ground. The Sovereign explained that this insect nest used to be the trial field for beginners of his people, and that this dagger, using the human classification system, was level A. Li Yi grabbed the dagger, not knowing why they called it that, since for him this was a great sword, and he wondered if the Sovereign's people were made up of giants. The Sovereign made it clear that, in comparison with his shadow power, these weapons were nothing. Using the power of shadow, Li Yi stored the weapons in a system portal. Among them were the Fang Wolf Dagger, the Reckless Dagger, and the Black Gold Dagger. The Sovereign became somewhat curious. He did not know if Li Yi could use it in another way. Li Yi began to walk toward the portal, revealing that he intended to sell them. Li Yi began to show a smile, knowing that only advanced level D people could sell equipment, so his first stop would be the registration hall. Once our boy arrived at the registration hall, the woman revealed that although his body stats were good, there was no detectable energy fluctuation, and because of this, he was classified as level E. Li Yi couldn't help but panic and sweat, since the records indicated that he was already registered as a minor, and advancing to level E meant 15% more pay. Li Yi left the registration hall, thinking that the shadow system was unmatched. The Sovereign made it clear that it was because humans could not detect shadow energy. Our boy realized that not being detected could be a good thing, but it would make selling equipment a little more difficult. A few hours later, hooded and with the sword behind his back, Li Yi arrived at the black market, the place where all shady deals happened. For the Sovereign, black sounded perfect for the shadow system. Everyone's attention was fixed on our boy, realizing that he was wearing the mining air duct cloth, and even gave off a smell of mineral dust. It was strange for them to see a miner in this place. Li Yi began to observe the weapons that were for sale in the place. According to the Sovereign, humans were ridiculous for sticking gems to a piece of metal and calling it a divine weapon. The owner of the black market approached our boy and asked him to leave, questioning why a miner was barging into his shop and warning him that if he dirtied the merchandise, he wouldn't be able to pay for it. Li Yi questioned if this was the way he treated customers. The owner covered his nose. He questioned how Li Yi could be a customer with such a poor and ragged appearance, and was sure there was nothing in the store he could afford. Our boy unwrapped the sword and made it clear that he didn't like the store's merchandise. He was here for an appraiser to see how much his sword was worth. The owner's attention was fixed on a man and a woman. The woman, named Su Qing, a civilian, asked Zhuo Huo, an advanced one of level D, why he had brought her to such a smelly place like this. Upon recognizing Zhuo, the owner approached and, with a smile, greeted young Master Zhou, asking him if he had something good to sell that day. Zhou began to show a sword. He had obtained it that day at the Gate of Otherworlds and planned to sell it to buy his girlfriend a new car. The owner's eyes widened in surprise as he realized that it was the Windhowl sword. This weapon increased attack power by itself, which made it a highly coveted item for those of level D. Li Yi recognized Su Qing, making her feel somewhat surprised. She remembered the time he tried to win her heart by giving her flowers, only for her to stomp on them. Back then, she had thrown in his face that his parents had died and questioned what he had done with the millions from the compensation. She called him a penniless loser who had lost everything and was now in debt, demanding that he stop looking for her and wasting her time. Zhuo didn't know if she knew Li Yi. Su Qing, showing a forced smile, denied knowing him, questioning why she would know about a low-level miner. She quickly suggested that maybe he was a fan, stating that being an online celebrity made it normal for people to recognize her. With an arrogant expression, Zhuo began to walk toward Li Yi. He asked if he had just called her Su Qing and expressed his amazement at how the standards of the place were declining by allowing trash like him in, questioning whether they weren't worried that this would lower the class of the establishment. He imbued his power into the sword and ordered Li Yi to get lost, telling him to hurry up and take his trash to the scrap collector at the end of the street. Zhuo attacked Li Yi's sword, but his eyes widened in surprise when his own sword broke into pieces, leaving him in shock. With a smile, Li Yi made it clear that Zhuo's sword was the real trash. Zhuo couldn't help but clench his teeth tightly. Su was somewhat confused, wondering how this could have happened. Zhuo had assured her that the sword could cut iron and that it was worth a lot. Zhou cursed Li Yi under his breath. Blinded by anger and humiliation, he prepared to attack, asking him if he was looking for death. Zhuo imbued his power into his fist and attacked, but Li Yi dodged the attack without much effort. Noticing that it was very slow, Zhou couldn't help but praise him since his movements weren't bad at all. He focused and imbued his power into his leg, then began to attack with a flurry of kicks. But again, Li Yi began to dodge without problems. For him, this attack was much slower than the insect nest trial. With a furious expression, Zhuo clenched his teeth tightly. He did not know what was happening and remembered that Li Yi was just a miner who wasn't even level E. When Zhou tried to strike, Li Yi moved to the side, evading the attack. Zhuo was in shock, as he didn't understand why he couldn't hit him despite being level D. Li Yi began to release his shadow power and created a whip, which wrapped around Zhuo's wrist. Zhuo did not give up. He jumped and prepared to attack again, shouting that the miners should simply crawl back into their holes. Li Yi's eyes began to shine with arrogance, and he sarcastically asked if, in that case, the dogs should also crawl on the ground. Li Yi grabbed the whip tightly and pulled hard, causing Zhuo's body to crash forcefully against the ground. Su panicked. She could not believe that her boyfriend had been defeated. While Li Yi's eyes were shining with malice, with a smile he commented that Zhou really aspired to be a dog. This made Zhuo burst with rage. Without losing a second, he stood up and started charging toward our boy. At that moment, a man opened the store door and gave them the order to stop. Zhuo stopped, and when he turned around, he saw his boss Wang. This man was Wang Deifa, an advanced one of level D, the owner of the black market. With a penetrating gaze, he mentioned that although Zhou was one of his best clients, fighting in his store was going too far. Su quickly began to point at our boy, explaining that Li Yi, the miner, had broken Zhou's precious sword, and because of this, he had attacked. Wang couldn't help but feel disdain upon hearing that Li Yi was a miner. He began to walk toward Li Yi and, with a curious expression, asked if he had really broken Zhou's weapon with the sword he held in his hand. With a smile, our boy explained that Zhuo had attacked him first, so if his sword was broken, it wasn't his fault. Wang turned to Zhuo, asking if Li Yi was telling the truth. Zhuo began to ponder, not knowing what to say. Wang passed by Zhuo and with a smile mentioned that Li Yi's sword did not seem like an ordinary object, then asked if they would apply the usual rule. Zhuo's eyes began to shine with malice, and with a smile he decided that he would take the money while Wang would keep the goods. With a smile, Wang mentioned that since Zhuo trusted him, he would be the peacemaker. He asked Li Yi if he could take a look at the sword. Li Yi handed over the sword. Wang's eyes widened in surprise. He began examining the sword, realizing it weighed more than 50 kilograms, and yet Li Yi had held it with great ease. This made him wonder if he might be a genius and decided to test him a bit further. He became curious, since he didn't know where a miner like him had gotten this weapon. With a serene gaze, Li Yi questioned since when the black market needed to verify the owner and source of goods. Wang clarified that he was only asking out of curiosity, and there was no problem if Li Yi didn't want to say. Li Yi quickly realized that this guy was testing him. Li Yi made up a lie, saying it wasn't a big secret, he had found this sword while mining. Wang's eyes began to shine. He no longer had any doubt that Li Yi really was a low-level miner. Wang began to examine the sword carefully, mentioning that it was quite sturdy but lacked additional properties, being worth at most a few $100s. In contrast, Zhou's sword, if it hadn't broken, would have had a value of more than 2 million. With a smile, he revealed his thoughts. He proposed buying his trash sword, since life as a miner wasn't easy. In exchange, Li Yi only needed to pay Zhou 2 million, and he would take care of covering the rest. An arrogant smile spread across his face, saying that he would take this as a good deed, and asked Zhou what he thought. Zhou did not refuse, since Boss Wang was intervening. Su was somewhat worried, since she knew it was impossible for a miner to get 2 million. This put at risk the car that Zhou had promised to buy her. Zhou grabbed her by the cheek and asked her not to worry, since they could sell his organs. This should be enough to get the 2 million. Wang's men got ready to give our boy a beating, and he realized that they really had everything planned out. Wang questioned if Li Yi had any problem with this, asking him to enjoy his moment. Li Yi's eyes began to shine, and while his body was releasing the sovereign's aura, he made it clear that he was not the one who should be worried. At Wang Defa's command to cripple him, his men charged Li Yi. Wang Defa, however, was unconcerned. He told Su Qing and Zhou that the fighting was pointless and suggested they wait in the tea room, which Zhou agreed to. But as they turned, a henchman was sent flying behind them. The man crashed against the wall, leaving Zhou and Su Qing in shock. Seeing this, Wang Defa's calm vanished. He shouted for a man named Ah Biao to be careful, warning not to break the merchandise since they couldn't pay for it. Li Yi easily dodged an attack and kicked another henchman in the face. Seeing his men get defeated, Zhuo became enraged. He grabbed one of the fallen men by the hair and stared furiously at Li Yi. Zhuo then launched his own attack, noting with a kick that mining seemed to have built up Li Yi's strength. As he fought, dark shadow tendrils shot from the ground, grabbing Su Qing and the henchman. Su screamed in terror. With the others held back, Li Yi turned to Zhou. His eyes glowed blue as he told Zhou it was now his turn. Su Qing watched in disbelief, wondering how this miner had suddenly become so good at fighting. Zhuo, however, smirked. He admitted Li Yi's moves were good enough for nobodies, but not impressive. He then declared that in front of a D-rank advanced one like himself, Li Yi was still trash. With that, he surrounded himself in red energy and threw a powerful kick at Li Yi. To Zhuo's shock, Li Yi calmly caught the energized kick with one hand, which was now covered in dark shadow power. Before Zhuo could react, Li Yi slapped him hard across the face, sending him flying in shock and spitting blood. Landing on his feet, Zhuo was filled with rage. His body flared with red energy as he screamed that even his father had never hit him and questioned how Li Yi dared to slap him. Vowing to kill him, Zhuo unleashed a massive blast of red energy from his hand toward Li Yi. In response, Li Yi raised his own hand, glowing with purple shadow energy, to meet the attack. The two powers collided in a huge explosion that filled the room with smoke. When the smoke cleared, Zhuo stood panting in disbelief. Li Yi was unharmed, with the red energy crackling around him, but unable to touch him. Zhuo couldn't understand what happened, saying it felt like he had hit an invisible wall. As Li Yi walked towards them, he told Zhuo that since his father never dared to discipline him, he would teach the ungrateful brat a lesson. A terrified Zhuo warned him to stay back, while Su Qing, also scared, questioned how her D-rank boyfriend could lose to a simple miner. Suddenly, shadow tendrils shot from Li Yi, forming a spiderweb that wrapped around and trapped both Zhuo and Su Qing. Su screamed, not understanding how the shadow morph spiderweb technique held them. Now face to face with Zhuo, Li Yi listened as the terrified man insisted he couldn't be a miner, guessing he must be a powerful C-rank or even B-rank advanced one. With a smirk, Li Yi showed his hands, now covered in shadow energy, and stated he was just an E-rank miner, certified by the guild. Zhuo could only stare, muttering that it was impossible. Li Yi raised his hand, which glowed with purple energy, preparing to strike the helpless Zhuo. In a desperate plea, Zhuo begged him to wait, revealing he was in the Black Panther gang. He warned that if he was harmed, Li Yi would make an enemy of the gang's leader, Brother Panther. With his eyes glowing, Li Yi asked if Zhuo meant the loan-sharking Black Panther gang. Thinking the threat worked, Zhuo proudly confirmed it. However, his pride was short-lived as Li Yi punched him in the face. Suqing screamed while Zhuo cried out for Brother Panther. Without pausing, Li Yi followed with a kick that sent both Zhuo and the restrained Suqing flying. The force left Zhuo coughing up blood. Looking down at the defeated man, Li Yi stated with cold fury that the thing he hated most was loan-sharking scumbags. At that moment, Wang Deifa, the shop owner, finally intervened. Filled with rage, he drew his large sword and charged at Li Yi, screaming for him to die. But Li Yi, surrounded by purple shadow energy, easily sidestepped. He told Wang Deifa to get lost and kicked him, sending the shop owner flying in pain. Zhuo, now terrified, changed his tone. He pleaded that it was all a misunderstanding and offered 100,000 yuan to be friends and drop the matter. Li Yi was unimpressed. He loomed over Zhuo and mocked if his face was only worth 2,000 yuan per slap. In terror, Zhuo shouted offers of 500,000, then 1,000,000 yuan, begging Li Yi to stop hitting him. Using his shadow tendrils like whips, Li Yi taunted Zhuo. He sarcastically asked if Zhuo enjoyed charging high interest, suggesting they play by his rules. He explained that the 50 slaps were just the interest, and now it was time for the principal. Pushed to his limit, Zhuo held out a black VIP card, screaming that it was worth 5 million and was everything he had. Li Yi took the card, and his eyes narrowed. He recognized the NG Group VIP card and realized these were the debt collectors who had forced him into the mines. In that moment, a plan formed. He would let Zhuo go and use him to lure out the real mastermind. As he pocketed the card, Li Yi reflected on how the Black Panther gang had extorted millions from him. He considered the money as returning to its rightful owner. With his decision made, the shadow tendrils receded. As Suqing helped a battered Zhuo up, she demanded to know why he called Li Yi a mere minor. Zhuo snapped back, questioning how he was supposed to know Li Yi would become so powerful. Boiling with anger, Zhuo violently shoved Suqing, screaming that if she hadn't misidentified Li Yi, he wouldn't have been ambushed. Suqing cried out as she fell. Seething with rage, his eyes glowing red, Zhuo pulled out his phone. He vowed his money wouldn't be taken so easily and swore revenge. The scene shifts to a dark street where a formidable man, Brother Panther, stood over defeated bodies. His phone rang. On the other end, a desperate Zhuo wildly exaggerated the story, claiming someone stole a treasured sword meant for Brother Panther and had threatened their gang. With a sinister glint in his red eyes, Brother Panther ordered Zhuo to send him the man's information. After the call, one of Brother Panther's subordinates reported they had their target and asked what to do with the people they had just defeated. With a cruel smile, Brother Panther dismissively asked if his subordinate saw any people there. The red-haired man, his eyes also glowing, grinned and manipulated red energy threads, agreeing he saw no one. With a flick of his fingers, the threads sliced through the victims, killing them instantly. Brother Panther then nonchalantly mentioned the call from that kid Joe, remarking that it didn't matter to him whether Li Yi lived or died. Later, a hooded Li Yi was at the Advanced One's task hall, looking at the mission board. A hall official approached and asked if he needed help. Li Yi lowered his hood, explaining he was an E-rank Advanced One looking for a suitable task. His E-rank status brought immediate ridicule from others in the hall. Two men mocked him, calling him E-rank trash and saying the lowest tasks here were D-rank. They asked if he was trying to get killed. The scorn continued, with a red-haired woman calling E-ranks disgusting parasites who begged from higher ranks. The official, now less friendly, told Li Yi to leave and wait outside for a team to pick him. Another person cruelly added that trash should stay with the garbage pile. As Li Yi walked away, he checked his phone and found the 5 million yuan from Zhuo was already gone, withdrawn by the loan sharks. Cursing in frustration, he knew his top priority was still finding a task. Just then, a high-heeled boot stepped into the hall, grabbing everyone's attention. A wave of pressure washed over the room, and the same people who had mocked Li Yi were now frozen in terror. The intense pressure forced everyone back. The crowd recognized the overwhelming aura of at least a B-rank Advanced One, a power so strong they couldn't move. The source of this power was a stunning woman with long, white hair, wolf-like ears, and piercing red eyes, surrounded by a red and black aura. As she walked, the crowd parted in fear, wondering why a B-rank was here. She stopped near Li Yi, her gaze passing over the cowering group. While everyone else was paralyzed by fear, Li Yi remained calm. Using his eye of shadow, he observed her closely. He noted that despite her powerful aura, she seemed like a delicate, rich girl, and he couldn't sense any killing intent from her. He found her to be an interesting mix of powerful yet restrained. A man with the white-haired woman announced a D-rank mining task at the Beast Abyss. The crowd, still scared, backed away. Their attention then turned to Li Yi, who stood completely unfazed by the B rank's presence. They whispered in disbelief, shocked when he confidently stepped forward. With a small smirk, Li Yi realized he was the only one in the hall able to take the job. The white-haired woman's gaze fell on him, noting with interest that the minor was unaffected by her pressure. The hall official hurried over, identifying her as Miss Qin, and offered to show her some D-rank advanced ones. Miss Qin cut him off, pointed at Li Yi, and declared, "I'll take him," leaving the official speechless. The official nervously protested that Li Yi was late and not properly registered. Miss Qin's eyes began to glow as she turned on him, stating that she was the rules. The terrified official could only agree. As her group led Li Yi out, the official watched, bewildered. He had never seen Miss Qin personally choose someone and wondered about this mysterious minor. Inside the Beast Abyss, Miss Qin's team fought a horde of red-eyed minotaurs. The team was well supported by a bard playing a flute, who noted their team was well balanced. The battle raged, with a powerful warrior blocking blows while others sliced through the beasts. From the back, Miss Qin and her companion oversaw the fight. Li Yi watched the efficient display, noting that with a B-rank leader, everything seemed smooth. However, despite the flawless battle, Li Yi felt a sense of unease. A bead of sweat ran down his face as his eye of shadow sensed a danger the others had missed. Standing on a ledge, Li Yi's unease grew as he saw the huge number of minotaurs below. He knew this was far beyond a normal D-rank mission and didn't understand why the team seemed unaware of the danger. The Sovereign materialized, explaining that Li Yi's Eye of Shadow had reached a second tier, giving him senses far beyond his teammates. Still, Li Yi believed the powerful Miss Qin should have also sensed it. As the team paused before a dark cave, Li Yi's suspicion deepened. He wondered if Miss Qin had noticed the danger but was hiding it. The bard confirmed their target, the starlight crystal vein, was inside the cave. Miss Qin then turned to Li Yi and ordered him, the minor, to come with her. Li Yi followed, wondering why she would knowingly drag a minor into such a dangerous situation. As he followed her into the dark cave, Li Yi felt an ominous aura intensify with every step. He was left to wonder about her motives. Was she careless about her team's lives, or just so confident in her B-rank power that she believed she could protect everyone? Deeper in the cave, the ground beneath them suddenly cracked. The floor gave way, creating a deep chasm. Li Yi and Miss Qin reacted instantly, leaping away from the crumbling rock. One less agile teammate wasn't so lucky, crying out as they fell into the darkness. Li Yi and Miss Qin landed safely on solid ground. Before they could process the loss, Li Yi's senses went on high alert. A new, more powerful threat had arrived. From the chasm's shadows, a hulking figure emerged. It was a D-rank Minotaur beastman, far larger and more menacing than the others. With a ferocious roar, it brandished a massive axe, its red eyes glowing as it faced Li Yi and Miss Qin. Faced with the powerful D-rank Minotaur, Li Yi watched as Miss Qin prepared to fight. A red aura erupted around her as her wolf ears and eyes glowed, signaling the B-rank was about to make her move. However, to Li Yi's surprise, she suddenly faltered. A distressed look crossed her face, and her confidence vanished. Instead of attacking, she retreated, telling Li Yi to go fight while she covered him. Li Yi was baffled, reminding her that he was just a minor. Miss Qin's face turned bright red with embarrassment. She collapsed to one knee, dropped her sword, and desperately yelled at Li Yi to fight. Li Yi argued back, questioning why a B-rank expected an E-rank minor to handle the situation for a minor's pay. With tears in her eyes, Miss Qin cried out that she would give him $1 million to take care of the beasts. Hearing the offer, Li Yi stood over the kneeling Miss Qin and declared that for the money, he would do it. With a smirk, his eyes glowed purple as he summoned his shadow dagger, remarking that he would have to force himself. With a confident smirk, Li Yi manifested his shadow daggers, which swirled with purple energy as Miss Qin watched from the ground. He then turned to face the 3 hulking minotaurs, coolly inviting them to attack. As the beasts charged, Li Yi moved with lightning speed, easily weaving between them. However, while Li Yi was occupied with 2 of the minotaurs, the third broke away and charged at the vulnerable Miss Qin. Seeing the beast about to crush her, she screamed. Just as the Minotaur's claws were about to strike, she unleashed a powerful vortex of red energy that vaporized the creature instantly. Li Yi, having dealt with his opponents, witnessed her devastating attack. He wiped sweat from his brow, admitting to himself that she did have powerful moves and that he had misjudged her. His thought was cut short as the powerful D-rank beastman leaped high into the air, bringing its axe down in a deadly strike aimed at Miss Qin. Just as the axe was about to crush Miss Qin, Li Yi intervened. He summoned his massive great sword from a swirling shadow portal. In a flash, he moved between Miss Chin and the beast, deflecting the attack. Standing over the safe Miss Chin, his eyes glowing, he smirked and sarcastically asked if she just had a face that attracted hatred. To his astonishment, instead of standing up, Miss Chin panicked. She let out a nonsensical cry and sprinted away, shouting that the beasts were now his problem. With a sigh, Li Yi remarked on how hopeless she was before killing the remaining minotaurs with a single, powerful slash. Meanwhile, Miss Chin ran blindly through the caves until she was out of breath. She stopped against a rock wall to recover, thinking she was finally safe. However, the shadow of the Minotaur beastman fell over her. It had followed her. Her eyes widened in terror, which soon gave way to confusion. She stared up at the beast and asked, Why aren't you afraid of me?" The Minotaur beastman swung its massive club, ready to crush the petrified Miss Chin. From a safe distance, Li Yi watched, finding it strange. He knew she could fight back and couldn't understand her fear. Just as the weapon was about to hit, Miss Chin screamed, and a bracelet on her wrist glowed with intense red energy. A powerful shockwave erupted from her, blasting the Minotaur backward. Li then noticed the glowing bracelet had shattered. This confirmed his suspicion. It was a protective charm, and the powerful defense hadn't come from her own abilities. He approached the embarrassed Miss Chin and asked if she was a non-combat type advanced. She quietly confirmed it. Realizing her secret was out, she begged him to keep it a secret. With a sly smirk, Li Yi rested his great sword on his shoulder and told her that keeping her secret would cost extra. However, as they faced the regrouping beasts, Li Yi noticed something strange. The Minotaurs were completely ignoring him and focusing all their aggression on Miss Chin, leaving him to wonder why she was their only target.